My name is George, I'm 67 years old, and I've spent most of my life quietly building the kind of life most people only dream about. I worked hard, saved meticulously, and even at my age, I take pride in keeping my mind sharp, my body in shape, and my dignity intact. But dignity, as I've learned, is a fragile thing, easily trampled by those who assume they hold all the power. It all started with a phone call. My daughter, Vanessa, had always been ambitious, relentless in her pursuit of a perfect life. She married a man named Brad, a self-assured, smug, and entitled individual who seemed to operate under the delusion that the world owed him obedience. That I had been living with Vanessa and Brad for nearly 6 months. My wife had passed away 2 years prior, and Vanessa insisted I move in with her, so we could take care of each other in our golden years. At first, I thought it would be a nice compromise. I could provide some stability in their home, and I wouldn't be alone. But the reality was something else entirely. It was a Thursday evening, the kind of late autumn night where the chill seeps into your bones, making you think twice about opening the windows. I had just finished making myself a cup of tea and was settling into my favorite armchair when Vanessa approached me, her posture sharp, her tone sharper. "Dad," she said, crossing her arms, "we need to talk." That I looked up, adjusting my glasses, trying to mask my curiosity with patience. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Vanessa's eyes flicked toward Brad, who was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. I knew immediately he was in on this. I braced myself. "You need to understand," Vanessa began, "Brad and I have talked, and we've decided. Well, you have two choices. You either serve him, take care of things around the house the way he likes them, cater to his needs, or you leave." That I blinked twice. My tea sloshed slightly in the cup. "Serve him?" I repeated slowly, as if hearing her words aloud might make sense of them. "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "He has a certain lifestyle, a certain standard, and we expect you to maintain it. If that's too much, you can pack up and go. Your choice." I placed my cup down carefully and studied her. This wasn't the daughter I had raised. Somewhere along the way, ambition had warped her into someone willing to sacrifice family respect for comfort and appearances. But anger didn't serve me. I smiled, and the smile wasn't friendly. It was the smile of a man who had been underestimated one too many times. "Pack up," I said softly, grabbing my suitcase from the corner. Vanessa's jaw dropped. "Dad! Wait! You can't just..." "I think I can," I said, and left before she could finish her sentence. Brad, naturally, didn't even bother looking up. I could hear Vanessa fuming behind the closed door. But this wasn't the end. Oh no, it was only the beginning. That I spent the first night at a small, modest hotel downtown. The kind of place where no one cares who you are or why you're there. And that night, as I lay on the stiff mattress staring at the ceiling, I plotted. Not out of revenge for its own sake, but because when someone tries to dictate your dignity, the only thing left is to remind them that age and experience carry a certain power they cannot imagine. My plan started simply. I would bide my time, learn everything about Brad, and exploit every weakness he had. I had known Brad's type for decades: charismatic on the surface, fragile underneath, terrified of being exposed for the charlatan he truly was. All I needed was patience. Over the next week, I observed from a distance. I went back to my home every evening under the pretense of visiting, though Vanessa clearly thought I'd cut ties. Brad's arrogance was his weakness. He bragged about his business ventures, his social media influence, even the network of friends who supposedly hung on his every word. It was all smoke. And smoke is combustible. I started small. A subtle nudge here, a quiet reminder there. I had always been tech-savvy, and I knew exactly how to manipulate the little digital world Brad prized so much. First, I created a fake social media account, posing as a young entrepreneur looking for advice. I messaged Brad with a request for mentorship, and naturally, he took the bait. Brad loved this kind of attention. He was flattered, puffing himself up with every interaction. I fed him false leads about investment opportunities and secret business deals. He began spending hours responding, sharing private information, and, without knowing it, documenting his arrogance in ways that could later be used against him. Meanwhile, I returned to Vanessa occasionally, offering advice in my old fatherly way. She remained dismissive, but I noticed cracks. Every time she realized something about Brad didn't go her way, she would glance at me, not for guidance, but in search of someone who actually knew how life worked. I let her stew in her frustration. Patience was essential. Then came the turning point. I discovered Brad had a secret, one that could ruin him socially and professionally if revealed. I won't say how I found it, because the method is irrelevant. What matters is the precision with which I executed my next steps. Brad had been claiming financial success that didn't exist. He had fake accounts, falsified investment portfolios, and an entire persona built on lies. This was the leverage I needed. That I invited myself over one evening, ostensibly to reconnect. Vanessa, as expected, tried to push me toward chores, cleaning, cooking, running errands for Brad, but I had other plans. I smiled as I unpacked my small toolkit of evidence, carefully curated over weeks. "Dad, what are you doing?" Vanessa hissed as I spread documents, screenshots, and financial records across the kitchen table. That I looked up, calm as ever. "Just tidying up," I said. But my eyes twinkled with the knowledge that the storm had begun. Brad walked in, expecting his evening of indulgence. Instead, he froze. The documents were damning. Each one meticulously catalogued his lies, his fake investments, and his social manipulations. What is this?" he stammered, trying to regain composure. "It's reality," I said. "All the smoke, all the boasts, the lifestyle you thought you could bully everyone into accepting. It's all here. And Vanessa, if you're interested, you might want to look closely. Your perfect husband isn't so perfect after all." Vanessa gasped, and Brad's face turned a sickly shade of green. I could see the power shift immediately. The arrogance drained from him like water from a leaky bucket. Over the next several days, I orchestrated the perfect exposure. I sent carefully worded messages to his business contacts, his so-called friends, and even his online followers. Everything hinted at fraud, dishonesty, and exploitation. Naturally, the reactions were swift and chaotic. Invitations to speak at events disappeared, partnerships dissolved, and the social media empire he had spent years building began to crumble. Vanessa, at first mortified, slowly began to see the truth. Brad's charms evaporated under the scrutiny of reality. I watched silently as she struggled to reconcile her loyalty to her husband with the undeniable facts before her, and yet, I wasn't finished. Brad needed a personal reckoning, not just a public one. I invited him for a discussion under the guise of reconciliation. He showed up, tentative, expecting manipulation. But this time, I held nothing back. "Brad," I said, leaning back in my chair, "you demanded that I serve you. You thought I would bow, cater, and obey. You thought my age, my quiet nature, made me weak. You were wrong. I don't serve men like you." I exposed them. His face twisted, disbelief turning to fear. By now, the authorities and social circles were involved quietly, not due to my interference directly, but because the evidence I leaked was impossible to ignore. Brad knew he had no defense. That in the end, the humiliation was complete. Business losses, social disgrace, and personal shame, all delivered with surgical precision. And Vanessa. She finally saw me not just as her father, but as a man whose life experience and patience had outmaneuvered arrogance and entitlement. After the dust settled, I returned to my small hotel for a week to regain my peace. Vanessa called, tearful but apologetic. "Dad. I was wrong," she said. "I thought I knew what was best. I understand now. You were right all along." That I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from victory without cruelty. "Vanessa, I never wanted to prove myself right. I only wanted to show you that respect can't be demanded, it must be earned. She asked if I'd move back in. I paused. The answer wasn't obvious. I had achieved what I wanted, not just revenge, but clarity and respect restored. I decided on my terms, would return, but as a guest, not a servant. I would live my life with dignity, and Vanessa would finally understand that age is not weakness. Brad never fully recovered. The man who demanded servitude found himself serving only the humiliation he had crafted for himself. Vanessa, wiser and more cautious, learned to balance loyalty with discernment. And me? I carried on, my life intact, my dignity preserved, and my old suitcase a symbol of both defiance and triumph. At 67, I had learned something important: revenge isn't about cruelty. It's about balance, precision, and showing the world that even in your twilight years, you're not to be underestimated. Some lessons, I realized, are best taught through experience. And as for Brad, I only ever smiled when our paths crossed in public. No words, no confrontation, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing the universe, with a little help from me, had set things right.